Shalom, brothers. Today we're going to deal with the topic of the Hebrew versus the Aramaic, because there's a lot of controversy out there that people are trying to say that the scriptures are written in the Aramaic and the New Testament was written in the Aramaic, and that's all BS, you know. And we're going to show you in today's lesson, you know, where the Hebrew language came from, because that's our original language, you know. Because back during the time of the Tower of Babel, they were speaking one language, and that one language that they were speaking was the language of the Hebrew. And then after that, that's when all the dialects, you know, different dialects came out, and through the line of Aram, they kept what they call today Aramaic. All right, so what we're gonna do, because there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of different controversies out there about the Hebrew language versus the Aramaic, and they say the Lord spoke the Aramaic when he came to Paul. So there's a lot of madness and confusion out there. So what we're going to try to do on this lesson is we're going to try to clear up some of that madness. All right, so what we're going to do first and foremost is we're going to go ahead and go and start in the book of Genesis, the 10th chapter. So we're going to pull that up. We're going to go to the beginning, which as the Elder Tar always says, you know, this is the chapter that the so-called scholars call the book of or the Table of Nations. All right, this is the book of Genesis, the 10th chapter and the 21st verse, and it reads as such. It says, "Unto Shem also, the father of all the children of Eber." Now notice that the first thing that it goes into when it speaks about Shem, which is one of the sons of Noah, because Noah had 3 sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth, right? "Unto Shem also, the father of all the children of Eber." The first person that it mentions in the line of these children is Eber. Now, was Eber actually Shem's son, or was Shem actually the father, the actual father of Eber? No, he was. What we're gonna find out. Let's read on. It says, "Unto Shem also, the father of all the children of Eber, the brother of Japheth, the elder, even to him were children born." The children of Shem. Now these are the children of Shem. All right, Elam, and Ashur, and Arphaxad, and Lud, and Aram. All right. So it says here, "Unto Shem also, the father of all the children of Eber." So now, Shem actually wasn't the father of Eber, even though Eber came down the line through his line. His sons were Elam, Ashur, Arphaxad, Lud, and Aram. Now, why would the scriptures make a distinction to say that Shem was the father of the children of Eber? Because the Eber down the line, as we read down further, Eber was going to be the child that was going to keep the language, or through whose lineage the language was going to be kept. All right, so now let's read on, just to get some more clarification. And then Aram is the line, and then there were other people also, but Aram was one of the lines that kept that Aramaic language after the Tower of Babel. But we'll get to that. "And the children of Aram, Uz, and Hul, and Gether, and Mash. And Arphaxad begat Salah, and Salah begat Eber." All right, so Shem was actually the grandfather of Eber. All right, it says, "And unto Eber were born 2 sons. The name of the one was Peleg," which the word Peleg comes from the Hebrew word palag, which means division. "For in his days was the earth divided." So that's when the division of the earth came, right after Eber's son Peleg was born. All right, and his brother's name was Joktan. All right, so now let's go here to the Blue Letter Bible, to the book of Genesis, the 10th chapter, just to start this thing off the right way. Genesis 10 and 21. It says this, "Unto Shem also, the father of all the children of Eber." Now let's look up that word Eber there, or the name Eber. What does it say for the name Eber? Ibar. The word there is Ibar. Now, keep in mind, this Blue Letter Bible, they go off. So, I mean, I didn't look up any of this beforehand. I just looked up some of the words, but I didn't really go into depth of what they were saying. So, I'm sure they're gonna go off some part or another. Here it says Eber or Heber, the region beyond. See, that's bullshit. That's what these so-called scholars are teaching. You know, that the word Hebrew means a cross or some madness like that. That's not what it means. The word Eber or Ibar means past. All right. It's and basically it goes into the history of where he came from. All right. So we want to just to get the word Eber or Ibar in the Hebrew. Right. Now let's go back here. And then we're going to go to the 22nd verse where it speaks about the children of Shem, where you have Aram there, right? Now Aram there, when you look up the word Aram, the word there in the Hebrew is Aram, okay? Aram, which does mean exalted. And notice here it says, or Arameans. Aram or Syria, the nation. The Syrian or Aramean people. Alright, and that's where the language kept the name, the Aramean language kept the name Aramean through Aram. Alright, which was actually one of the sons of Shem. Alright, so now let's go from there to the book of Genesis, the 11th chapter, in the first verse. And it says, and the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. So that one language and that one speech that the whole world was speaking at that time was the language of the Hebrew. All right, the Lashawan Kodash, you know. And how do we know that? Because when we read back in Genesis the 10th chapter, matter of fact, let's get that real quick. Back in Genesis 10 and 21, it said here, unto Shem also the father of all the children of Eber. So it made a specific distinction, which is not going to be clear to everybody, but it made a specific distinction of Shem being the father of the children of Eber, because through the children of Eber, on down the line through Eber, then going down into Peleg, you know, on down, that's where that line was going to keep this language. You know, now keep in mind you had different nations out there that were speaking the Hebrew language, the actual Hebrew language, not the Aramaic. You know, like Moab and Ammon and other nations that did keep this language, but the language was kept through Eber. Alright, so now let's go back to the book of Genesis, the 11th chapter, and I read that again. It says, and the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. Alright, so now I'm going to jump down to the 6th verse. And the Lord said, behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So this was the beginning of the separation of the languages. Alright, because prior to that they were speaking one language, and everybody was in one accord, to prove to you and show you that the Lord is not with that one world order, or everybody coming together, or all nations coming together. You know, even just from the very beginning of the creation, and from the beginning of after the flood, when men began to multiply upon the earth through Noah's 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, the Most High didn't want all men to come together as one. You know, he never wanted it back then. He definitely doesn't want it right now. You know, this is just stuff. These are ploys and tactics that have been taught by the so-called white men and the other nations, and have been employed by these bonehead niggas out here that want to keep this so-called white man's kingdom afloat. All right, so now let's go from there to the very first time that the actual word Hebrew is mentioned in the Bible. All right, now keep in mind, when you read Genesis the 11th chapter, as you go on down, you're gonna run into all the descendants through the genealogy, beginning from Shem all the way down through the chosen line. Alright, and one of the men of that chosen line, which was one of the fathers of the promise, was Abraham. Now when they came across Abraham, these Canaanites here, as you read the story, you know, for you brothers, you know, out there, you read the book of Genesis 14, you know, and other scriptures, you know, go into the history when you get a chance. When you read what these Canaanites were doing, they had taken Abraham's Abraham's nephew Lot captive, right? So then when they took him captive, one of Lot, because Abraham had Abraham had servants, right? And Abraham's name, before it was changed to Abraham, Abraham's name was known as Abram, okay, or Abram. Now Abram, the the term the term Abram is from the Hebrew word Abba, which means father, and Ram, which means exalted. All right. Then the Lord changed his name later to Abraham, or Abba Raham, which means father of a multitude, because through Abraham the nation of Israel basically was going to become a great and exalted nation. All right. So this is what is written in Genesis 14 and 13. And there came one that had escaped and told Abram the Hebrew. Right. So they called him the Hebrew. So now let's go to the Blue Letter Bible and let's look up that term Hebrew in Genesis, the 14th chapter, and let's scroll down to the 13th verse and let's see what that says. So here we go. We got